Welcome to today's explainer. So, we're going to do something a bit different. We are going to intuitively build a foundational model of global trade from the ground up, completely from scratch. But here's the twist. Once we build it, we're going to watch real-world empirical data spectacularly break that very model. Now, don't worry. We aren't going to just leave you in the dark. We're going to work our way backward, step by step, to authenticate the original theory and actually solve one of the absolute greatest economic puzzles of our time. Okay, so let's dive right into this fundamental question. Why exactly do countries trade what they trade? This isn't just some abstract academic theory. These are the exact forces that dictate the price of the smartphone in your pocket, where the clothes you're wearing came from, and even the availability of jobs in your local town. Now, for decades, economists have tried to answer this using an incredibly ambitious model. It was meant to describe the endowments, the technologies, the production, and the trade of literally all countries in one single, unified constellation. It's an elegant idea for sure, but as you'll see in a minute, it comes with a massive catch. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the intuitive trade theory, uncover the missing trade mystery, and then walk through three crucial fixes: technology differences, consumer preferences, and local factor mobility, before finally solving the global puzzle. All right, part one, the intuitive trade theory and the foundations of global exchange. So the whole foundation of this global trade machine is the Heckscher-Ohlin-Vanek, or HOV, theorem. And honestly, this theorem is wonderfully elegant. Simply put, it proposes that a country's exports are dictated by what it has in abundance. So if a country possesses a massive amount of capital, like think heavy machinery and wealth, it exports capital-intensive goods. If it has a massive labor force, well, it exports labor-intensive goods. It makes perfect intuitive sense, right? But here's where it gets tricky. To predict this perfectly frictionless, unified global economy, what economists call the integrated equilibrium, the model has to make some incredibly strict assumptions. I mean, it literally assumes that a unit of labor or machinery costs the exact same everywhere on Earth. It assumes all countries share identical technology, that shipping goods across oceans costs absolutely nothing, and that consumers universally share the exact same spending habits. Which brings us to section 2, the missing trade mystery. Basically, what happens when real-world data completely breaks the machine? So, this theoretical machine is built, and honestly, it looks beautiful on paper. But then, in 1995, an economist named Daniel Treffler actually ran the numbers. He compared the theory's predictions against real-world international data. And you know what he found? He discovered that the model correctly predicted the direction of trade only 32% of the time. No, really, that means predicting global trade using this highly sophisticated economic model was actually worse than relying on a coin flip. The data revealed a staggering anomaly. Treffler dubbed this the mystery of the missing trade. And he wasn't exaggerating. There was a massive, completely unexplainable gap between what the theory predicted and global reality. The actual volume of trade flowing between nations was literally an order of magnitude smaller than what the national endowments said it should be. The trade was just missing. So, how do we fix it? Let's move to section 3, fix 1, technology differences, and repairing the productivity gap. To authenticate the theory and clear its name, we have to replace the faulty parts. The old model naively assumed a unit of labor was perfectly equal everywhere. Like a worker is just a worker, right? But the fix accounts for real productivity gaps by calculating endowments in what are called efficiency units. We have to acknowledge that because of superior technology and infrastructure, U.S. factors might be twice as productive as Italian factors, or maybe 10 times as productive as factors in a developing nation. We absolutely have to adjust for local efficiency. And the classic Barbie doll supply chain proves exactly why this is so crucial. Think about it. The raw plastic and the hair for the doll come from Taiwan and Japan. The actual physical assembly happens in Indonesia and China, but the molds, the paints, the marketing, and most importantly, the corporate profits originate in the U.S. The vast majority of the retail value is actually U.S. value-added activity. So we must evaluate the factor content of trade according to actual local techniques rather than assuming some universal, perfectly equal global standard. Moving right along to Section 4, Fix 2, Consumer Preferences and the Demand-Side Solution. So the original HOV theory assumed what we call homothetic preferences, which is just a fancy way of saying poor and rich countries consume goods in the exact same proportions. But come on, that completely ignores reality. Preferences are actually non-homothetic. As populations get wealthier, their consumption habits change dramatically. A rich country doesn't just buy more of the exact same basic goods a poor country buys. They buy entirely different, high-value, skill-intensive goods. And here is our smoking gun on the demand side. Researchers found a strong 45% positive correlation between a good's skill intensity and its income elasticity. What does that mean in plain English? It means that rich countries heavily consume the exact same highly skilled, complex goods that they specialize in producing in the first place. This realization is a real game changer. It completely solves the mystery of why there is a massive home bias in consumption. It explains why trade volumes between the wealthy global north and the poorer south are just way, way lower than originally predicted. Rich countries simply trade primarily with one another because they demand the very things they are uniquely skilled at making. Next up is Section 5, Fix 3, Local Factor Mobility, or the literal borders that trap trade. So the old broken model assumed labor and capital would just magically and instantly flow over to export sectors to meet global demand. But economist Patrick Conway proved this is totally false. Reallocation is sluggish. You can't just take a highly specialized machine or a specifically trained worker and snap your fingers to instantly switch their industry. Plus, large local service sectors, which don't trade globally, absorb a ton of these resources. This internal friction creates a severe anti-trade bias. It actively lowers the actual volume of global trade compared to that frictionless, idealized model. Which finally brings us to Section 6, Solving the Global Puzzle and Getting the Machine Rebuilt. The crucial point here is that by putting these three clues together, we can work our way back to the beginning and fully authenticate the original intuition. Step 1, we adjust the data for local productivity and efficiency. Step 2, we adjust for non-homothetic consumer preferences, acknowledging that wealth changes demand. And Step 3, we adjust for local factor mobility and trade costs. By methodically introducing these parsimonious amendments, we finally rebuild the theoretical machine. And this time, when we turn it on, it actually matches the empirical data. Just look at this transformation on the table. It's honestly incredible. When the data is properly adjusted with these three fixes, countries truly do export their abundant factors in approximately the right magnitudes. We have successfully tracked down the missing trade, and we've perfectly validated the beautiful, intuitive core of the original Heckscher-Ohlin-Vainik framework. So we've repaired the machine and solved the mystery. But, as with all great economics, answering one question just opens the door to an even bigger one. If wealthy nations primarily demand and trade the high-skilled goods that only other wealthy nations produce, it creates a closed loop. It leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought. How can developing nations ever break into the most profitable global trade networks? It's a absolutely vital question about the future of global inequality and trade policy, and one I highly encourage you to explore next. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.